Hi everyone and welcome back to my morning report chart analysis videos on Tuesday 4th of October 2016. My FX trade of the year chart analysis now. Week 1 we're looking at dollar yen, Aussie dollar, Aussie Kiwi, sterling yen, dollar sec, the Dow Jones, silver and coffee. So let's get into it. Let's look at dollar yen first. Now we've had this big break higher on dollar yen, really going higher on strong candle actually. 5 in a row, so looking positive for this breakout. So we're going to go with this breakout, and the break above the resistance near term at 101.85 is means that is now supportive. So between 101.60 and 101.50, 85 is now supportive for a pullback. Interesting that 102 figure has already proven a bit supportive today. 102 is an old pivot line. It's not exact, it's not dead bang on, but it still has provided a basis of support today on this little pullback. But the market seems to be pushing out towards 102.80, which is this reaction high that we saw on 21st of September. That is the BOJ and Fed day, so that is a big resistance, and it'll be a big statement by the bulls if they can test that and break it. So strong momentum, looking good on the upside. Right, Aussie dollar. Now we had the RBA out overnight, and the impact was fairly positive actually for the Aussie. It just drifted lower, but subsequently it has found a bit of support, and the downside pressure hasn't been all that great considering how strong the dollar's been. So I think I'm taking that as a positive. Now you've got support now 76.45. Down to 76 sort of 35 area, so 10 pips worth of support really, and you need those 10 pips of support to hold, because if you break that then you're going to look more corrective. But for now I think you're still sort of, I'd say, more neutral-ish rather than positive, but still the momentum indicators are holding up. The hourly RSI above 40, MACD line is just unwinding really, so I think it's fairly neutral to still reasonably positive. You could argue that you're still on an upward track, even though you've sort of, broken that uptrend. You're still sort of holding on to it. So for now, as long as these two supports hold, 76.35, I think it's all positive. So Aussie Kiwi. Sorry, I need to run through these quicker. Aussie Kiwi. Come on. Right, still got that big head and shoulders top pattern potentially, so that's something to worry about if you're long. 104.68 is the support, but look at this 105 figure support that we saw coming in. Interesting. So that's held again today, 105.06. So we're still holding on to that, even though we're looking a bit drifting correction. And that seems to be what we're showing on the momentum indicators as well. MACD line's under neutral, not great. Stochastics still sort of bumping on the bottom. It looks like it's pressuring 105 figure, in my opinion, on that. And you could still see a threat towards the top pattern. But for now, it's still sort of hanging on. But you are trading below all the moving averages as well. So slight concern there. But you have got a pivot, sort of a bit of a pivot range really, you'd argue. It's not too bad in terms of resistance, sort of between 105, 35, 105, 45 area. You wouldn't really want to see, if you were short, a move above 105.55, which was the reaction high today. So sterling yen. Interesting that sterling yen hasn't really fallen, despite the fact that sterling weakness has been shown against the dollar. Sterling yen's basically held up really well, and is still ranging. Really, in the last sort of week or so, really is still ranging. You've got flat moving averages. Momentum indicators show a ranging market as well. RSI sort of above 35, below 60, 65. So that's just a ranging market, and just turning lower again. You could argue slight bit of downside impetus for the near term. I mean, that corrective candle, that big key 1 hour reversal or bearish engulfing hour is puts the pressure on. So that's left your resistance at 131.35, and it sort of adds to a bit more of a downside pressure, but not enormous. Granted, not enormous downside pressure at the moment. And the fact is that we've sort of been supported 30.55 in the last hour or so. So bit of a neutral to slightly bearish angle there on sterling yen. Dollar sec. Dollar sec, strong dollar today. Don't forget, strong dollar. Come on, chart, load. Oh, come on. Right, there we go. So yeah, strong dollar today. We've reflected that in the chart, which has gained ground, but just slightly turning lower from 8 spots as 6025. Generally speaking, again, another chart that's sort of positive within a range. Sort of dollar, I should sort of say dollar positive within a range, but it's still ranging, isn't it? RSI between 30 and 60 on the 30 and 70 on the hourly RSI. Marginal sort of bullish bias within that range, but still, I'd say it's still ranging. You've not really shown any real breakout yet. Big resistance still comes in around 863. Supportive around that 852 area. But again, yes, you're sort of mildly positive within the range, but just dropping away again. Maybe sort of look to buy into weakness today, because it certainly seems to be a dollar strength day, which should be pulling dollar sec higher. Okay, Dow Jones, or US 30 as we like to call it on MT4. Neutral, still neutral, but choppy in the last few days. Very sort of considered yesterday, nothing really in terms of direction. So you'd still say that the analysis from yesterday holds, just basically choppy within the range, isn't it? 18,370 as the sort of general resistance, supportive just under 18,100. It looks fairly neutral on the hourly momentum indicators, doesn't it? But I'd say any sort of direction to the downside is still likely to play this range. So we're likely to see a bit of upside today in terms of the fact that the European markets are looking pretty strong today. So perhaps go with that initially, but just bear in mind there's big resistance overhead, 18,365 area, and it is a ranging market. Silver XAG equals. So silver broke down yesterday below the sort of 1890 area, and it's holding that breakdown. I can show you on the daily chart where that sort of suggests we're sort of testing the lows of the range again. 1850 is where the lows come in, 1835 to the tip, but generally 1850 is a big sort of range floor, and you're sort of now moving towards a test of that level. Sort of the near-term technicals are corrective, the stochastics falling away. It's all pretty much pointing towards a test of that 1850 level. So selling into strength if you get it today. Big sort of overhead supply now between 1890 and 19 figure area. Sort of all these lows that were posted between these two levels now become resistance overhead supply, and already that's been tested today. So old support becomes new resistance. So any sort of unwinding move on the RSI, maybe back towards 60 or 50s, is probably a chance to sell on silver for a near-term test of that 1850 level. And finally, coffee, KCC1. Not on the hourly chart, sorry, don't get any sort of real indication of that, but it has been sort of corrective yesterday, broke down below the support that I talked about at this initial level, sort of 149, which had been holding yesterday, broke below that. It's basically flat on the day today, but testing that 147 level, that seems to be the key September low that could come under pressure now. So we were in a corrective phase. Look at the stochastics falling away, MACD lines falling away, RSI at a 5-6 week low. So these are all suggesting that we're going to be testing the supports, 147, possibly 145, below 147, but then you're looking at probably 140 if it continues. That seems to be a consistent support and arguably pivot level as well. So 140 could well be seen if we sort of break clear of this 147 level of support. In terms of your resistance, yesterday's high 151.70, but the key resistance obviously comes in at 154.95, and the big resistance at 160.90. But certainly looks like it's in a corrective phase and selling into rallies there. So I wish you good luck in all your trading on all of your lucky 8 pairs and instruments, and I will speak to you again later. Thank you.